Love podcasts, hate nonsense. It's the PoliticsJOE Pubcast, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah!
Lick the stamp and send it. Come on.
You dropped the intro.
What?
You dropped the intro.
Dropped it.
You didn't say love podcast, hate
did.
nonsense.
I did.
You did.
Well, we all start.
That's why we clapped. That
Where
the
was
cue to
I?
clap.
Yeah, on a different,
Sorry.
in a different place. And actually, you just interrupted. I was going to do a whoop then.
Were you?
I was close to whooping.
Really?
Yeah. You
Go
cut
on.
me off. No,
No, go on.
not now.
You've killed it.
You've ruined it. It's not the same. It's not the same.
Sorry.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's a very special edition of the Pubcast today because not only are we joined by the golden boy of PoliticsJOE, Ed Campbell, and of course also the capital J journalist, Ava Santina, we're also joined by Dominatrix extraordinaire, Megara Furie. Megara, welcome.
Thank you.
Very, very glad to have you with us. Maybe we just start with a little chat about you.
Okay, go
Who
for
you
it.
are, what you do. Maybe, actually, no, I'll tell you what, Ed, why don't you tell the story of how we sort of came across Megara in the first place, because
Yeah.
paintball tournament.
Long-time fans of the podcast will remember our discussion about the Doms v Subs Paintball tournament. And then that's your event, Megara, isn't it?
Yeah.
So you're one of the people who lays waste to half-naked men.
For you, in like your, well, all the work that you do,
Yeah.
how do you make sure that the worst doesn't happen? Do you know what I mean? Whatever it is you're doing, you mentioned to me before putting a nail through someone's ball sack.
Yeah, that's something that I've seen done quite a lot. And yeah.
How do you keep people safe? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, and there's all different levels of safety. So you've got your physical safety, and you can manage that just as much as you can. So people are there with the understanding if pain is their thing, that they're going to get hurt, and that's the whole point of it. So, try to get insurance is quite hard, like, when everything in there is designed to hurt you. And but in terms of safety, it can be physical safety. So, just don't take risks that common sense wise are just daft things to do. If you're going to tie someone up, then you want to make sure that you're not tying up any areas where you might cut off circulation. So, for example, if you're tying up wrists, you want to make sure you're past that little bone, because otherwise the rope could cut in here, cut off circulation. You can do permanent nerve damage. So just little things like that you need to learn along the way. That's probably one of the reasons why having a mentor when I was really early in this was really pivotal for me. And then you've got things like your psychological safety. So making sure that the person's all right up here. There's also different codes that you can follow depending on what one you want to prescribe to. So you've got the SSC, which is safe, sane, consensual, which is probably the one that most people know about. And then you've got RAC, which is risk aware consensual kink, which is where you can kind of play more at the edge of things and the boundaries of safety. Then you've got consensual, non-consensual. So that's where you consent to not giving consent, which is where you get like rape play fantasies and things like that coming out. And but you need to find where you want to play, and then have conversations with people and make sure that everybody's aware of what's going to happen. Also to check in with the person as the session's continuing, and that might include safe words. So for me, I've got a traffic light system, and the traffic light system is red, amber and green. So green is go, and amber is slow or change, and red is no. So if they shout green, so I'll say, give me a colour. So I'll maybe be in the middle of doing something, and instead of saying, are you okay, how are you feeling, it might kind of break the scene a little bit. I can say, give me a colour, and they say green, okay, so I can continue, or I can ramp things up. If I say to them, give me a colour, and they give me amber or yellow, then at that point I'll check in with them. What do you need? Do you need to change direction? Do you want to do something different? Or do you just need a break? Do you need me to slow down? And we'll communicate that. And then if they call red means I'm having a heart attack or my leg's going to fall off. Like, the session ends immediately there and then. Like, everything stops and they leave immediately. There's no changing about. So what I say to people is, if you if you're needing like some time or some space, then call Amber. But if you keep calling Amber and you start taking the mick, like we're not really getting into any sort of flow with it, then I'll call Red and I'll end the session. So there's all of that, like, and more that can be put into making sure that people are kept safe.
It's pretty, when I think about, I guess maybe this is just like stereotypes or generalizations in my head, but when someone says, BDSM, says like, a dominatrix, you're kind of just, the first thing in your head, you're thinking of like whips and chains and people like, in cages, and obviously there are always going to be, safety mechanisms and all that in place.
Yeah.
But you just kind of, you have like stereotypes, right, that are attached to the work you do.
I think people think that there's this frenzy that happens in the dungeon where you're going to miss all this stuff, but actually you set the pace of your sessions and they're not as fast paced and as frenzied as you would think. Like, a lot of stuff takes time to set up. There's loads of opportunity in there for someone to say, you know what, I've changed my mind, and that's okay. And I think that in a BDSM relationship or in a BDSM session, there's so much more conversation taking place. There's so much more room for saying yes or no to things and giving consent or revoking consent, and consent on both sides. Like, they need to consent to having the things done to them, but I need to consent to doing them. And there's certain things that I'll say, no, I'm not doing that. So
What are they?
Things like, I don't do scat. I don't
What's
do...
Poo.
Oh, do you know what? I asked and I knew.
You were the audience surrogate.
Sorry.
Jazz singing?
That was. Is that what it is?
Well, you don't
Dreadful voice.
So no scat, no, I don't vomit, I don't do any sort of toilet play or anything like that. I don't do adult baby. It's just not my bag at all. I don't really do much public stuff unless it's really controlled or in a kind of closed environment, or there's a thing that I did a while ago, which I kind of, looking back, I'm like, oh, why did I do that? But basically I took someone on a lead right through Glasgow, and I had them had him in a dog mask with a leash on him, and I was walking him round, and it was good fun in that. But when I look back, I think to myself, I've probably unwittingly involved members of the public in a scene that they don't consent to being in, and it's only with hindsight that you see these things. So
It's interesting
I
that-
wouldn't do that again, I don't think.
That's because that's like one of the editorial conversations we had around even doing this interview, right? Is because some of your subs, you mentioned earlier, public humiliation and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
There are people who, some of your subs will enjoy the fact that you're here talking about them with us in front of other people, and there's then a question for us as a publisher of like, we're entering in that relationship then, we're taking a position on it then. We're like, are we just observing and talking to you, or are we actually participating in it?
Yeah, that's interesting. Well, they were definitely very excited that I was going to be on this. Like,
Yeah.
one sub turned up about a week ago. I think I was telling you about it in text, and he turned up and he was like, so just tell me, are you going to be on PoliticsJOE? And I was like, how did you know about that? And he's like, I heard it, and I heard about the paintball and they were talking about it, and he's like, I love that show. I'm just so excited. Can't believe you're going to be
love
on it.
that.
He was like
that.
breathless excited.
This was
about
never
it.
a question that I had, by the way. This is just purely a concern of his. This was absolutely fine
You were like
with
full
me.
send.
Yeah.
What's that sub's nickname?
He doesn't really have a nickname, but
Okay.
if I was going to call him anything, I'd call him Boot Humper.
Boot Humper.
Yeah.
Boot Humper, you're the man.
Shout out Boot Humper.
Or
Loves a
not.
boot hump.
Hump the poo, but pump. Fuck. No, I had a good one too.
Go on.
Cut that.
Okay.
Hump the boot, don't lick the boot.
That's it. Yes.
Will you tell us the rest of that story?
The boot humper
Yeah.
story.
After he said to you, "Oh, I'm so excited," you said something about. Well, I don't want to take on the text. You couldn't really hear what he was saying because your foot was in his mouth.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, then he was like, oh, and I took my foot out of his mouth, and he's like, and that's why I'm so excited.
We are going to talk about politics.
No,
as
we're
well.
not. This is
no,
sick.
this is fucking this is fucking great. To be fair, so maybe we won't. We'll see how long we go for. But you've got
Cut the episode in half. Easy.
Yeah, maybe we do. Sorry. But we're going to do a bit about your own history, both in terms of sort of legalisation and campaign against sex work in Scotland, your work in the unions there. We're going to talk about the BBC. We're going to talk about Keir Starmer's drift to the right. We're going to talk about universities. We're going to talk about the heat wave. And you guys are allegedly going to try and fix politics as well. That's coming at the end.
Full green on that one.
Yes. But before we do all of that, Megara, you've brought a bag of tricks with you.
I have.
I understand.
Indeed.
So
Okay.
I was wondering if you could give us a run through some of the stuff you brought with you.
So
It's like show and tell, isn't it?
it is. It's like show and tell. Bring your toys to work day.
Yeah.
So you'd said about bringing stuff and having stuff out the dungeon, but what I thought would be more helpful, especially to anyone watching this, is to bring ordinary household items that you can repurpose as kinky things.
It's like Blue Peter.
Yeah, it's like we're in a cost of living crisis.
Sexy Blue Peter.
Here's one I made earlier.
Cost of living crisis. Nobody wants to be spending extra money.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
let me show you how
And
to.
also,
Martin knows eat your heart out.
you also flew here, right? So the more metal you took, that would just be like a airport security guy on the X-ray being like,
Absolutely. I've had things pulled out of my bag before. Like,
Yeah.
You're not really allowed. You can't take rope on a flight. I've learned. So someone.
fair enough.
But surely if it's within context, would it not like be allowed?
I don't think like
Not when the
terrorists can
guy
be like,
pulls
I'm a
out
dominant.
butt plugs and a doxy vibrator at the same time, and he was like,
And
"What
a
are you
huge
doing with
paintball gun.
It was actually that was the problem.
And someone in there. There's a live person in there.
bloke like waving
Yeah.
at him outside the suitcase.
Yeah, no, I'm full green on this, don't worry. Like full green.
Okay, cool.
Put me through the scanner.
Put me through the scan. Boot humper, trussed up, going through the scan.
So what I wanted to. Let's see what else I've got. All right.
Spoons.
Wondering why I've got spoons and a skirt hanger. So these are just things that I grabbed in my kitchen. I thought, right, I can do something with these. I didn't have a butt plug in my kitchen, right
It's
enough.
very pretty.
So
That's what you were saying there. It's a pretty looking thing.
It's unused, by the way, but it's so pretty. Like, I absolutely love this. I think it's really. And look, your bumhole can twinkle.
I like to think mine already does.
Twinkle, twinkle, little star. It's
Yeah.
great. The other things that I've brought. This is actually my partner's exercise band, but what you could do with this is, if you've got these at home, is you can tie them around the person or people that you're playing with, and then you can use it just to pull it back and snap it back. So if you're doing any sort of spanking or anything like that, then you can repurpose things like this as an implement for spanking. You can also use it for tying up as well, but I would be careful with how tight you go with it, and always keep scissors handy.
Because of the circulation thing you were saying about.
Yes. The next thing that I brought was little sandwich clips, bags. So you can use them as makeshift nipple clamps, and they're actually really effective.
But you see, I can never get them tight enough around, like, you know, the cracker bag. So, like, I question that.
Surely
So they look like they'd be tight, to be honest with you.
Yep, you can get them, they'll squish the skin down. If that's not enough for you though, then we have skirt hangers, you can move these in and out, attach them onto nipples.
up in the wardrobe.
Yes. But the great part about these is it's got a hook on it, so the hook you can add weights, and you can move them in and turn it into like a ball clamp, and you can attach weights and stuff onto it. So there's that. And the reason,
what is a ball clamp?
just a clamp that goes on your balls.
I should have guessed that. Yeah.
The other things that I brought was just spoons. So what I like to make out of usually chopsticks, but I didn't have any chopsticks there, is you can create a sort of gag, and all you need is elastic bands and two long implements. Now it could be spoons, it could be chopsticks. Get the person to stick their tongue out and then just trap their tongue in between it. Put the elastic bands round, and then you can tie it around the back of their head, and then they're just like, and they can't speak. It can get quite painful though, so I wouldn't leave that on for too long.
This is kind of like Jason Bourne, James Bond type. Do you know what I mean? It's like if someone broke into my house and we only had household implements to defend ourselves, I feel like you'd pick the right thing. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely. One of the reasons why I brought this as well is
Specifically this one.
Yeah. So a lot of the time when you buy butt plugs, they've got a really wide part here, which is absolutely no good. So what you want is
Why?
you want a wide base here, and you want it to taper into quite a thin part here, and then be very wide here. The reason being, your bumhole is like a circular muscle, so you want it to close over that. And so that will go in, this will open up, it will close over it, and then that will help it to stay in. The wide base stops it from disappearing up your backside, and then you end up in A&E and somebody's holding up x-rays and laughing at you.
I fell on it, that kind of thing.
Yeah. Fell on it.
tripped.
Oh, tripped and fell in
I landed on that remote control.
Yeah. And also,
I reckon there are some A&E doctors watching this who are going to have some gripes. Well, no, not with you, because you're obviously being like, this is why this is important, but amateurs, rank amateurs.
Like, oh, not again.
Yeah, exactly.
But you want the thinness here as well, because what you don't want is to be, say you want to wear it and go out somewhere, you don't want to cough and it just pops out, you know. So, or you bend down to pick something up and you get up and it's on the floor. So what you want is a really thin bit here, nice fat bit here, or as fat as can go in without injuring yourself, and then a nice wide base on it. So
That's the gold standard, is it?
yes, that's what I would always go with, because I've tried other types of butt plugs on people and then they laugh and it shoots out, or they get too excited to
kill the
tense up
atmosphere.
and it pops out,
Yeah, that
and you're
would kill
just
the
like,
mood, wouldn't it? Yeah.
yeah.
Like both the wine.
Oh, sure.
Can you do that close to the microphone? Yeah, and then like a metallic clinking noise when it hits something.
Do you think when the subs heard that and was, oh no?
Yes. I hear them going, oh no, miss, I'm sorry. I'm like, did you spit out your butt plug?
Do you send them out like into the world with like butt plugs in and stuff?
So I was telling you this earlier, and I had a client who is in chastity, and he had a hill walk to go on, and he's like, oh, can I get out for my hill walk? I went, oh, I don't know. What to do is book a session with me and we'll discuss it then. So he turns up and I said, I'll need to think about what I want to make you do in order to earn getting your keys back for this. So he turns up and I got a butt plug, which is a Love Ends butt plug, and it can be controlled from anywhere in the world and it vibrates. So I linked it to my phone, stuck this thing in his backside, put loads of makeup on him, loads of jangly jewellery, so he like very much stood out if you were to see him. And I kept him locked. He'd also just been food shopping, so I took his oysters off him and flung them in the fridge. I said, I'm keeping your oysters as well. And I wrote a letter, just a note, and put it into an envelope and sealed it. And I said, right, you're going to go to a gay bar and you're going to go and give this note to someone. And you're going to bring back a signature so that I know that you've done it. And then I'll unlock you. And he's like, oh, right, okay. And he had a couple of sniffs of poppers because he bloody loves poppers, and that was him, ready to go. So he goes off, and in the note, he doesn't know what it says. So in his mind, it could be anything. It could be, the guy could start trying to kiss him, or it could be something wildly offensive and he gets a punch in the face, or it could be something really innocuous. So he's got no idea. But on the note, what I'd written was just really nice stuff. I was like, hey, my bits are locked away and I'm not allowed to get them back until I get a signature. So I'm going to buy you drinks, and can you just help me out so that I can get my bits back? And I wrote all this really nice stuff, and I wrote in it as well, like, if you're reading this, I think you're the prettiest man in this bar, and just tell me what drink order you've got. And also, once you've read this, please dispose of the note and don't give it back to me because I'm not allowed to know what it says. So he goes into a gay bar, hands it to the first guy that he sees, and they read it, and they were just smiling and laughing. And then they scrunch up the note and tell him, go to the bar and get me this drink. So he goes up, gets the drink, gives them their drink back, and they take the other piece of paper that was in the envelope, sign it, give it to him, and then he came back to the dungeon. And when he got back, he was just like, oh, that was so exciting. He's like, what did the note say? I was like, still not telling you.
Do you ever drop character? Do you ever have like post-match analysis and be like, this is what, like, in like, you as Megara, Boot Humper as Peter, or whatever his name is. Hopefully that wasn't his name, but
You've outed it.
or whatever his name is. Whatever
No,
his name
it's
is.
not his
And
name.
do you ever interact on not a sub-dom level, on being like this is what works, this is what didn't?
Yes.
Let's get okay.
Yeah,
Is there a feedback session? Is that what you're
Yeah, or just being like performance
why
review.
you put the oysters in the fridge and not the freezer? Sorry, that really did throw me off.
he was eating them that night.
Okay, right.
So we spend the first 5 minutes talking about the session and why they're there and what they want to get out of it, what would make it spectacular for them. And then we spend the last 5 minutes of the session just talking about, what did you enjoy? What was your favourite part? Was there anything missing that would have made a difference for you? Is there anything that you would definitely do next time? And is it what do you want your next session to look like? So that's partly to kind of break down, get some feedback from myself, and also find out what's working for them, what's not, because I need to get to know the person, and everyone's different. Also, it's sort of planting a seed that there's going to be another session, but it's just a matter of what that looks like. And I think that really helps to build that relationship with the person as well.
Right. Should we talk a little bit about your work as a boss union organiser?
Yes.
Because before you were a dom, you did a little bit of lap dancing. Am I right in saying that? And quite recently, some legal efforts were made, governmental efforts were made to close strip clubs in Glasgow.
Yep.
And also the Highlands.
Yeah. They tried to close them all over Scotland.
And Edinburgh. People Triangle Edinburgh was under threat.
There's also a ton in Aberdeen as well, I think, because of the oil rigs, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, so they tried to close it down. They hadn't counted on Megara Furie, had they? They weren't ready for that.
I mean, it wasn't just me. It was
I know, but
a whole bunch of very angry strippers. So
fuck me. Run.
So
What
I guess it goes back quite a while. Like the first time that I got involved in any sort of activism was way back when Sarah Champion, the Labour MP, was trying to remove everyone's websites and have them all taken away, bring in the Nordic model, criminalise buyers and all of that stuff. If you take away the website, then you take away a screening opportunity for workers. And that would make everyone unsafe. So I decided at that point that if I was in any other workplace and I was being made unsafe, what would I do? I would unionise. The only stumbling block that I saw was that we were all self-employed. So what unions would take on self-employed workers didn't even occur to me that we're sex workers and that there might be an issue on that side of things. So that's how little of a thing that I had, like an awareness that I had that anybody might actually be annoyed at that or have a problem with it. So I put into Google self-employed unions, like who can help, and GMB was the first one that came up. So I contacted GMB via email and I got an email back and they said, oh, I'm not too sure, but I'll come back to you with an answer on that. And then within 24 hours, I had an answer that Ria Wolfson wanted to speak to us and she was really happy to take this on. So I met up with a couple of workers that I knew who were escorts. So I was the dom and then there was other escorts there. And we went up and spoke to Ria Wolfson and she listened to us and she listened to like our concerns and how we were just concerned that we were going to get made unsafe in a job that's completely legal. What do we do? And she said, okay, we're a trade union, we'll help you. She explained a lot about trade unionism, which was so in my mind, I thought the trade union will fight it. But then I wasn't thinking, well, what does that mean? Like, what does that look like? But the trade union is actually the workers fight that themselves, but they're empowered by the union. They give them a banner to organise under, they give them clout and visibility and access to like newspapers and journalists and all of that stuff, and also a lot of direction in terms of different things. So that was what we did, and she said to me, if you want your own branch, it's going to be difficult to place you in a branch because you're self-employed, but if you want your own branch, you're going to have to recruit at least 50 members. So I came out of that meeting and I was like, easy. It was not easy. So I went out trying to recruit people to come into the branch just to start organising and looking at different things. Very quickly, we found out that the Glasgow City Council were going to try and close down strip clubs. So the Scottish Government had legislated that the licensing conditions needed to change. So the strip clubs used to be a public entertainment venue, which was the same as like a bingo hall or a pub or anything like that. And they wanted to bring in a new type of licence called a sexual entertainment venue licence. What they were trying to do though was allow to do the consultation for the councils to decide whether or not they were going to have those licences, and if they were going to have those licences, then how many licences would they make available, including setting it as 0, which effectively shuts all the clubs and bans them all. So the Scottish Government brought that in. That was really pushed in by a lady in the SNP called Sandra White, who has hated strip clubs like all of her days. And she brought in Julie Bindle to do some research on strip clubs, and a lot of it was heavily kind of biased towards men are all sleazy and these women are all exploited, and there was a whole lot of stuff in there that we were like, that's not even the setup of a club. That's not even what happens. Like, and I know that because I've been there and I've worked there. So I doubted whether or not they'd even visited a club or whether they'd just made this up. So this was all taking place. Glasgow was the first place to start the consultation. And they weren't even going to have any dancers or any trade unions or anything at the table. And it was a lady, Rhiannon Spears, who was an SNP councillor at the time, that I spoke to. And I said to her, can you please make sure that GMB, dancers, club owners, anybody that's got a vested interest in this, any of the other trade unions as well, because there are other trade unions, are involved and they're at that table, because it's them that needs to have a say on this. You know, if you were going to legislate and get rid of plumbers might have something to say about it, right? And I can't tell you what a plumber should and shouldn't be doing because I don't know anything about plumbing. Mm-hmm. So same for us, it should be the experts. So they did this consultation. Then it was like dominoes. Other cities started doing them. And I'm like, I can only take on what I can take on. So I just focused on Glasgow. I went to GMB, and that was what really drove the numbers for joining. So overnight we had like over 100 members. It was huge. And we formed a strike team, which is what you would normally do when you're doing any sort of trade union campaign. You form a strike team, which is basically a small group of people who will take decisions on behalf of the larger group. Because if you were to try and run votes for everything, it would start to get quite slow and also quite messy and in arguments and all of that stuff. So formed a strike team of people that were happy to be in the media. And from there, our whole tactic was just to have conversations with people and to bring people in and to lean into what their concerns were and answer them and get the public on side. Another thing that we decided to do very early on was to dress and look and sound and act just like everybody else. So no protests in our underwear, no shouting and bawling and megaphones and all of that stuff, because what our decision was that would other us from other people, and people would go, oh, you're a bit, don't want to help you, you don't look like me, you don't sound like me. But when people look and sound like the women next door, or the person up the road, or that your friend of a friend or your sister's pal, and suddenly they're losing their job. Now you can relate to it. So by the time the consultation ended and all of the results were totted up, we went in for an evidence session as well. And when we went in for the evidence session, that was the first time that dancers had been round a table with all of these officials. And they asked us loads of things about different things that they'd heard through the grapevine or from women's groups that were just completely untrue. One women's group had went in and said, well, someone got sexually assaulted in a strip club last week and it happened here, and we were like, we're all in group chats. We would know about that.
You've heard about it, yeah.
Anything like that goes around like wildfire. There's CCTV in every single inch of every single club. Show me the evidence for that. That would have been reported. So there was things like that getting put about, and it's just completely untrue, and it was done so that the council would have doubts about the safety of the girls. But having the women there putting their case across was so powerful. And one of the things that I said to the council at the time was, you might have all the power, but we've got all the knowledge. So rather than fight each other, why don't we bring that together and actually set a gold standard, not just for Glasgow, but for the rest of Scotland and the rest of the UK. And a lot of the conditions that they wanted to bring in for safety were already happening. So I said, it's not like you're changing anything, but what you will do, because we were in support of licensing, because we thought they're going to do it anyway, so we might as well get on board with it. So we said, look, if you're going to license, all we want you to do is just take the conditions that are already happening and just set them in stone so they can't be taken away by new management or anything. Another thing that we did with that is, as a trade union, we got recognition in 2 of the clubs. So it was the first time a trade union had recognition in a club as well. So we have GMB have recognition in Seventh Heaven and also in Diamond Dolls. So even if that club changes management, we're still the trade union for in there, and we deal with any kind of disputes or anything. So that is really powerful, and it's really empowering for the women being able to unionise and bring things up like that. When it came to the last meeting where the council were going to take their vote and everything, we were allowed to sit in that meeting, and they read out the results of the consultation, and 94% of Glasgow were in favour of keeping the clubs. So I don't think they expected that, but when I heard that, I wasn't allowed to speak at the meeting, but I was like, so excited.
For listeners to the podcast and those who don't watch on YouTube, the second as you said that statistic, there is a huge smile on your face. As you say that, it's like vindication for all of that organisation, right? Yeah, and that came from having conversations. We set up a table in Buchanan Street and we got people to fill out the consultation by hand. We had paper copies printed out, and we brought people over. Now, there's some people who were absolutely on board. So we're like, here's your bit of paper, fill it out, great, we'll just put that in the box. There was some people who were absolute no's, they're never going to change their mind. So we were like, fair enough, have your opinion, that's fine. But it was mostly the people who were in the middle that we worked on. So the people that are almost a yes, we're like, well, what's stopping you from being a full yes? Tell us what your concerns are, and we cleared that up. And then there were people who were kind of on the border of maybe a no, and we just asked them, what is it that what's there for you? What are you seeing in your mind that you think that this is going to be unsafe? And just ask us, have the conversation, we'll tell you anything you need to know. And there was one guy who was, it's so seedy, it's terrible, it's disgusting, these women aren't safe. And so Debbie it was that actually had a chat with him, and she was like, look, I'm the breadwinner in my house. See if I need my kids watched. My husband's taking the day off work. And she her whole persona and her whole way of being was just so powerful that this guy was like, I wouldn't mess with you. And so he ended up signing and saying actually I'm a yes. You do what you need to do. So.
And how often have you seen him since?
It's regular. I think that's what's interesting is people have these perceptions about sex workers, whether that's strippers, sex workers, dominatrixes. Mm-hmm. I think most people probably don't know someone who is. So it's like what you said, but it's about the othering, isn't it? It's like they become this phantom onto which you can project your own morality, like, or your own assumed morality of other people, being like, I assume people wouldn't treat these people with respect, or these people aren't making the decision to do it themselves. But it's like giving a voice to the people that are doing it.
Yeah, and we all do it. We all put our own judgments on our own frame of reference onto people. There's probably people that look at you guys and put their own judgments onto you, right? And you
Never.
do it to
Absolutely never.
They're all right though.
Do you think it's a women thing as well? Like a traditional woman thing? Because, I mean, obviously ignoring the male sex workers for one moment, but it's almost... Do you know what I'm going to do? I was about to project my stereotypes. I was thinking it's like housewives at home who like are older and just don't like the idea of women having sex. But that is a real... That's my own thing. That's growing up Catholic. That's brought that out of me.
I think there's a whole range of different people that agree and disagree with it. What I found really surprising was sometimes it's the people that I thought would be the last people to agree or to be on board that were actually on board. And, you know, like really older female members of my family were like, you go on hen. And I'm like, okay, nice. And then there was people that I thought would be on board, but actually they were super prudish. And these are people who maybe are posting like their very like provocative photos and stuff on Instagram and all of this, but when you catch me anywhere near that, and it's like, wow, I thought you'd have been more in amongst this and more like supportive of that.
Through your work, not just that campaign, but also as a Dom, do you feel like you've, I'm sure you do, but a unique insight into kind of gender politics or power and the dynamics between particularly men and women, but I guess you and women as well? I know it's not just men who are your subs, but yeah, what sort of insights have you gained from that period of time?
So, I mean, on the gender politics side of things, like as a Dom, I've seen a lot of people who are either playing with or experimenting with the trans side of things. So when I first started 13 years ago, there weren't these very public conversations happening. So we would have what we termed, it's totally not politically correct anymore, but we termed it as TV dress up, which is transvestite dress up. So it was just guys want to put on a dress, right? And I wonder now whether or not they really were trans, but just trying to play it off and play it cool as, oh, it's just a wee fetish thing that I do, and how much of that was being hidden and suppressed, even in the dungeon, because they don't want to be out there with it. So, and there's definitely been more, I'm seeing people a lot more comfortable with themselves now and a lot more bolder now than when I first started 13 years ago. And some of that is just lovely to see, like it's really nice. Some of it, like for example, I've got a client who only started dressing quite late on in life, like 50 years old. And the thing for him is that he missed out in his 20s as a woman, and so didn't get that experience of going out clubbing and wearing short skirts and all that. So what they are doing now is trying to dress like that at this age, and there's like a disconnect between those two things, and it's a shame that they've missed that. But like they turned up at my dungeon in a mini skirt, like way too short, fishnet tights, PVC jacket, very like attention drawing, and we're like toddling down my street. And like I'm all for freedom and all of that stuff, but I'm also very much about discretion when it comes to my dungeon, and that would look very out of place in my quiet little street when there's someone toddling down with all of this on. And it was, for him it was his thrill, but for me I was like, please don't do that again. Like I'm fine if you want to come down dressed like a 50-year-old, But when you're dressed like that, like keep that for the nightclubs. It's 2:00 in the afternoon. I've got neighbours. Like I wouldn't walk down your street cracking a whip. So let's respect each other's spaces here. But I think a lot of that comes from me just didn't really know what to do with it. You know, there's a lot of finding your feet and finding that ground and like what are the boundaries of this? So I think right now it's like tumultuous. It's a kind of washing machine of stuff.
Well, it's like when you come into adolescence, don't you? I mean, like if you look around the family barbecue,
Yeah.
the 14-year-old is always wearing something outrageous, and you're like, why are you wearing that to this family event? And it's because you're discovering yourself and you're coming into yourself, right?
Yeah. And for a lot of older people, they skip all of that. They miss out on all of that, and then they try and reclaim it back, and it's like it's too late.
I guess people's stereotype or assumption about you and the work you do is, you know, Dom, BDSM, okay, you're like, you know, lads are having painful wanks in your basement, and then actually in a lot of cases you're almost you're liberating people, you know. It's you're almost a therapist as much as you are a dominatrix.
Yeah, and like being a coach,
What was that? Okay.
Sorry.
you're just like,
He's been. How long have we been going for? He can't take it. An hour sat across from you,
like-
Megara.
I heard painful wanks.
back to Nam.
Nice.
It's just way too hot in here for that.
It is. Yeah, it is. It's getting hot, isn't it, without the aircon? We've been going for an hour and we've only been talking about you. Maybe we should have a little bit of politics chat and just steal the limelight away from you.
Yes,
Sorry.
I'm up for that.
Ava, you were on the Beeb yesterday.
And you were on it the day before.
Well, yeah, but we'll talk about you first.
Why?
I've been polite.
I don't know why I'm in aggressive mode.
No,
now.
it's okay. Fine. You don't have to talk about being on TV.
Do you want those clamps?
Yes.
That's not what this show is. Yeah, I was on the Beeb on Sunday. I did Kunzberg.
Let's cut it so that you don't introduce a segment by talking about me. You just go straight in with I was on the Beeb on Sunday.
Yeah, enough about you, Megara. I want to talk about, my fucking self now. Okay, that's what this show is about. That's what the show is for.
All these weekly media check-in.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Yeah. So, Starmer was on Kunzberg alongside me, as well as Andrea.
No, say your name right.
Andrea Leadsom.
Your first question to him, you asked him whether he was going to be radical in government. He answered yes, and then didn't really commit to very much throughout the rest of the interview, did he? I also critical for different reasons to Andrea, I suspect. The terms of the debate that gets framed around Labour is how you're going to pay for it. Mm-hmm. Where's the money going to come from? I reject the terms of that debate pretty strongly because the Conservative Party is able to shake its magic money tree and £7 billion falls down so they can cut inheritance tax. Right now, it has never been, well, not never been, but by historical standards, it is cheap to borrow money. The state that the country is in at the moment, Andrea, I listen to you. I'd like it if you listen to me as well. It's cheap. It's cheap to borrow money by historical standards. We have the biggest squeeze on living standards since the Napoleonic Wars. If you invest money in this society, the social good that will come out of it is extraordinary. We have so much to gain. The calculation has to be, yes, financial cost. What do we gain out of it? If you invest money in building houses, right, you don't just have houses, you improve crime outcomes, you improve health outcomes. It is to the benefit of our society to make these changes.
Can we talk a little tiny bit of a backstory, which is that when you're a journalist, you go out and you do vox pops and you go and you doorstep politicians, sorry, not vox pops, and you kind of like jump out with a microphone and you ask them a few questions. Oli has done this to Keir Starmer before.
Yep.
In a way that I think it's fair to say he wasn't best pleased with?
No.
Is that fair?
Yeah, he wasn't happy.
We hung outside the chip shop he was in for an hour.
We did, and then we hung around outside the hotel he was meant to be staying in, and they were really unhappy about that as well.
They didn't love that.
Yeah,
which is perfectly allowed, right? And this is what all journalists do. Okay,
Yeah.
this is not just, a thing because of Oli.
Yeah, okay, look, so there's different things, there's competing things at play here, which is, one is the relationship between sort of like political leaders and the media, and the way that relationship typically works is if you want to have, if you want to get access to, let's say, the leader of the opposition's office, or 10 Downing Street, you have a line of communication between maybe their director of communications or the actual leader themselves. And in return for access to the people in power, they expect a certain standard of behaviour from you, either in your coverage of them and that person or just more broadly. So I've experienced that multiple times with Boris Johnson's Downing Street and also with Keir Starmer's Labour Party, who basically, you start talking to them and they're like, yeah, we want to do something in politics, Joe, and then you publish something and they're like, what the fuck is this? This was not in the agreement. This is why are you being blah, blah, blah. Anyway, so
imagine if we just went full send and every journalist published every text that had been sent by an advisor to them.
Yeah, well, exactly.
A threatening text,
Yeah,
honestly.
so
It would give you a run for your money, honestly.
You could just read out the text
Can I
Ava's been
have them
sent.
just for
Brinspo.
material?
yeah. So I've had a few of those before from advisors of different political shades. Anyway, we're in the green room and previous to this, and it's Andrea Leadsom, not Andrea Leadsom. I was told afterwards I've been saying her name wrong the entire time. It's Andrea. First thing she says to me is, "Oh, how's your blog doing?" To me, I'd probably say it's social media publisher Andrea, but don't.
Leadsom.
Yeah.
50 million minutes viewed a month, but no problem.
Well, yeah, billion views last month, Andrea. Just a billion views. Yeah, it's a blog. Yeah, fuck you. And then during the outro as well, Kunzberg said something like, it's great to have two dames. Why have one dame when you can have two? Because it was Dame Andrea Leadsom, it was also Dame Sharon White, the CEO of the John Lewis Partnership Group. And Andrea leant into me and went, "Do you feel inadequate?" Like in my ear.
Your eyes lit up there.
No, because, and I tell you
Love
what.
her.
Yeah. I
Instantly love her.
I actually loved it. I was like, you are being a bitch, and I love it.
That's
When
all.
he told us yesterday, we went,
Yeah.
That's all.
What a woman.
That's Ollie's dungeon.
Yeah, that is my dungeon.
Stunning.
A dame of the realm.
Why
telling
are
you
we
off.
why are we talking about?
oh, the
comms
crux of that was that it is then amusing for me that you shared a studio with him.
Yes. Anyway, so before the broadcast, he actually came into the green room to like shake everyone's hand and say hello to so did it with Andrea, Sharon, and also me. And I said, "Oh, nice to meet you," because I haven't actually been formally introduced to him. I've just chased him down the road with a microphone, and he went, "Good to see you." And that was that. So that was my little Kunzberg experience.
I wish you'd pulled a microphone out then and there.
Oh,
It
just
would have
ruined your relationship with Laura Kunzberg as well. just absolutely lay waste to all the.
The good work.
Do you know what would be a
on
good outcome to come out of the Andrea thing? Is
Yeah.
if she sends you a text in the coming days, and because of the Andrea thing,
Yeah.
she just spells it OLY.
Yeah,
Ole.
revenge. Ole! Yeah,
The
revenge
reason
for
that's
her.
funny is that that's not how he spells it.
Yeah,
O-double-L-I-E.
I'd be up for having her on the podcast. I don't think she probably would. I think
No, you called her a bitch.
Oh shit! Yeah, I did just call her a bitch, didn't I? Yeah, so that's not going to happen, is it? Ava, how was your experience on the BBC? Was it less fraught?
Yeah, it was good.
It was a bitch.
It was good fun. It was on with Darren Jones, who was I'd like to think a bit of a celebrity around these aisles,
Yeah, well, certainly for the PoliticsJOE audience, he is.
Yeah, we really like him on select committees, and we often serve you his content. And yesterday, he was making quite a conservative move, I think, to entering the shadow cabinet.
Yeah, he's
Yeah.
putting his case forward, wasn't he? I mean,
Most of the polling shows that the reason Labour are ahead is because they don't like the Conservatives. It's not because of anything that Starmer is actually putting down. And arguably, he's talking about we'll invest in public services after we get the economy back on track. Well, you can't get the economy back on track unless you invest in public services. It's an incredible catch-22.
Well, you can get the private sector moving whilst reforming public services. There are things that we can do in the private sector on skills, on productivity, on technology, supporting businesses to improve their exports, which will get the economy growing, which will then result in some more money coming into our bank account in order to pay for public services. So there's a whole economy piece, and it's very complicated, it's very hard, and it's going to take time to turn it around because the country's in such a mess.
You sound like a Conservative when you say that.
I don't think I am, because we're talking about reform. We're not saying the status quo is okay. We're saying things have to change, and we've got those 5 missions, which I think are very bold for the country.
he had to defend the indefensible, really, didn't he, as a Labour MP?
Yes.
Because on Kunzberg, Starmer had said, we will not remove the cap on the two-child benefit cap, right? He
Yes.
admitted that on Kunzberg, and so still going the next day, and they talked about it on Politics Live, and Darren Jones had to defend it
And this is important because research shows that it could lift 1 million children out of poverty.
for like £1 billion.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. 1.3 billion. Nothing really. In the same.
Pocket change, bro.
But it is when we're talking
Me
about.
and Megara, that's pocket change.
Pop over here.
Drop the receipt.
I'll just tweet it into my fin subs.
Yeah, look, can someone sort out the two-child cap?
Crowdfund 1.3 billion on Wish tender. That's what I'll do.
How long do you reckon? Minutes? Hours?
Moments.
Yeah, exactly.
And then we're in Downing Street with a paintball gun.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, he had to go out and defend that, right?
Yes, he did.
That sucks.
It's quite an
does,
uncomfortable
doesn't it?
position when you're a Labour MP who has come from humble beginnings. He said that he grew up on a council estate and benefited from the child benefit.
I think he was the first in his family to go to uni, I think.
Yeah.
He said that to me in an interview.
And then you have to say something like, but now I'm here,
Yeah.
you lot aren't coming.
Yeah,
you
kick away the
can.
ladder. Climb it, kick it away.
And then this wasn't Darren Jones, but I did speak to other Labour MPs who told me that they were quite disgusted by it. And I'm really shocked that more MPs haven't made a sound about it. Zara Sultana did. But it's really quite shocking because firstly they decided they weren't going to pay for free school meals, and now they're talking about two-child benefit not lifting the cap. I mean, what's the point?
You said, I thought you put it...
Better then?
No. Well, yeah, I guess, because you just said to him, you sound like a Conservative. I thought that was quite powerful, to be honest with you, because they
Thank you.
They do. They do. I mean, I think a couple of weekends ago in the Sunday Times, that someone was briefing out that they're going to maintain the Tories' fiscal rules for at least the first 2 years of a Labour government. You sound like a Conservative, and there's like, oh no, you're governing like a Conservative as well. And I don't know whether it's...
It goes in question again, just what are they for?
Well, you made the good point, which is that the Conservatives can find £7 billion to cancel inheritance tax when they want to, but they'll always accuse the Labour Party of hugging the magic money tree. Is that right, if I paraphrased you correctly?
Well, look, maybe I said it better when I said it. But,
We'll put the clip in now.
No,
and
we're
then-
in the right space.
Then viewers can decide if you email Ed at Joe.
The only true blue loyal Paul Joe head doesn't do any other media than what I'm paid to do.
Yeah, what was it you said I was... Did you accuse me of being a traitor for...
For going LBC?
Yeah.
100%. You won't catch me. I'm working for Global. You're joking. I would work for Global.
They're watching.
Do you think your dad can get you in there as well?
Universities?
Yeah.
So...
For or against?
Against.
Moving on.
Did you go to university, Megara?
Yes, I'm actually about to finish university.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I went to uni about 11 years ago, and I got to my honours year and then I dropped out because my partner my ex at the time killed himself. So I just gave up on university completely. And I was studying for a geology degree, and the partner that I'm with right now, my fiance, who we're getting married in August, he just kept poking me to like go and finish it. He's like, finish that degree, go and like finish that honours year. So I've signed up to Open University, and I'm going in October to finish off the geology degree, and I'm going to mix it in with a little bit of software engineering.
Wow.
Wow.
Yeah.
Second it.
Yeah.
It's one of these
Do we think that
useful degrees.
Yeah, I was about to say.
Richard Sunak would love that.
That
Literally.
qualifies, yeah.
That's what I was about to say is because... so we're talking about this because Rishi Sunak has announced a crackdown on Mickey Mouse degrees. And I think that's the challenge. It's interesting, isn't it? Because you say geology and software engineering, and we're all immediately like,
Science.
that's sick. That's a good degree. And then...
I'm not that confident I know what geology is.
What do you think it is?
Shapes.
Rocks? Is it rocks?
bang on.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but
Everything
then-
before humans and soil down.
nice.
I like that I diminished the degree that much.
Rocks.
Rocks, is it?
Rocks.
Yeah.
Stone.
It
Yeah.
really is.
And then we go around the table and we go politics, we go English literature, and we go...
Politics with quantitative methods. So I'm slightly more...
Politics.
Slightly less Mickey
Oh,
Mouse.
bit of data. Love it.
Yeah, I don't ever use it. I was really bad at it. So
Cool. But which of them are the Mickey Mouse degrees? This is the question with Rishi on this, right? It's like you have to say what they are. What is it? What's a Mickey Mouse degree?
Underwater basket weaving.
Well, yeah, okay, so yeah.
No, because how many people can do that? That's
No,
why
I know,
it's still
no,
We actually have a
professional.
skill shortage for underwater basket weavers.
Yeah, so
It was actually a bad one.
Sorry.
English literature is one that people like to say is a Mickey Mouse degree. Because they go, well, you're just reading. And it's like, I was also smoking a lot of weed.
It was
But
really
also-
hard to
Also,
concentrate.
with degrees, like, I wasn't reading. I don't know, like, I didn't do very much work at university.
No, me either. I worked. Like I
You had a job?
Yeah, to make money. I wasn't
yeah, same, yeah.
not working on like university stuff. But I think that kind of misses the point almost, because it's the job. It's the going and living independently by yourself for the first time, being put in a new social situation where you have to make friends for the first time, trying to take care of yourself. It's almost like it's like the little stepping stone before we go full kid gloves off, you know, go and get a job and live in a city and try not to fucking burn the whole place to the ground.
Yeah, there's like all these soft skills that get trained in university, like being able to work to a deadline, being able to hand in and follow instructions and create, like, take data and or take new concepts and pick them apart and think independently, and like there's so much that goes with a degree, or you know, even just an ordinary degree. The first 3 years, or I think it's 2 years in England?
Yeah.
And that is invaluable. Even just learning the practice of integrity. So saying that you're going to do something and then doing it, it's massive.
It's a life lesson, isn't it? You said
Yeah.
something like that earlier, didn't you, on the desk about, you know, you could be fucking... I'm sure when they say Mickey Mouse degrees, they're talking about anything that sort of has studies at the end of it, right? So film studies or gender studies.
And I resent that.
Yeah, I'm not saying that those things aren't worth studying, just FYI. But even if, let's say we just concede that they are, let's say we agree with the Conservative government that those things aren't worth studying, it's the process, it's the writing, making a précis of information, you know, researching. Those are skills that stand you in stead for the rest of your life.
There's also, I think, the accessories being at university, in terms of university allows you to do quite a lot of really cool things because you're in the university drama society or business society or like investment society.
Deleting Pint Society.
Fuck the jolly fucking rules. But so one of my best friends, he studied law at the University of Edinburgh, so that's not a Mickey Mouse degree.
Sounds pretty fucking Mickey Mouse to me.
But he did not do his degree. He was very much in the mindset of, I hate law, I'm not doing this. I think he graduated with an ordinary degree, so he just still graduated. But during his time at university, he was really involved with the drama society, like comedy stuff. He's now a BAFTA-winning TV producer, and he would not have been able to gain those skills had he not been at university, because he had the time and the resources from the university. There's skills that you learn. Like Oli and I, we're tabmen.
We are tabmen.
We wouldn't be here if we didn't write for the Cardiff Tab and the Edinburgh Tab, or like other student newspapers. There's things you can do in practice. It's not just, I think it's a really corporate view of what university should be. You should go and be a chemical engineer. And become a chemical engineer.
That's the perfect word for it.
And also it's things like fucking like social work. Social work's not a high earning profession, but it's important. And you go and do a degree in that. It's nursing.
Yeah, it's almost, you're right, it's like anything that's not like fucking STEM, anything that's not maths, anything that's not
Isn't nursing
bioengineering. Yeah, it probably is.
But I also think it's about critical thinking. You think about a large, careful with my words here, some generations will read things on Facebook and they take them as merit, and they don't have that kind of critical thinking skill, which is like assessing and analysing. And university provides that. When you're in school, you don't learn for learning's sake. You learn to complete exams and to graduate. Whereas when you go to university, you do sit around and you think and you ponder. And that really infuriates people like, I don't know, that Matthew bloke. What's his name? Goodwin.
I think there's a bit of that, with this, which is that it's kind of it's become fashionable, right, to sort of bemoan the graduate class. Younger people, university-educated people. Actually, it probably is sort of the dividing line of our society these days, is kind of an older, less educated strata of society versus a younger, more metropolitan, university-educated one. And that cleaves quite neatly along Remain and Leave lines. It also is, it's probably the defining fault line of our politics as well, because that's kind of, it's pretty much Labour Tory. And I think you could probably view British electoral politics for years to come as being a conflict between those two groups of people.
It's a very ugly comparison, isn't it? That you can only enjoy sort of like the things that graduates do if you are not in a trade job. Like, I dated a builder for a while and he was very well read. Far more well read than me. But what, he can't build? He can't be a labourer? Because he also likes to read? These two things separate? That is the exact line that the Conservatives are touting. Get into an apprenticeship and get your head out of the books. It's mental.
Yeah, pigeonholing.
So this was Miriam Cates, government minister in the Telegraph, yes?
Yes, yeah.
She said, cracking down on useless degrees is a much needed step. We also need a radical new offer for young people based on meaningful skills training, cheaper housing, lower taxes, and a solution to economic unfairness in which 80% of the wealth is held by the over 60s.
This motherfucker has been in power for 13 years.
Yes.
What have you been doing all this time? Girl, great, yeah, come on, fix it, Miriam. I dare you. I double dare you, motherfucker.
Fucker. Yeah! Yeah, no, it's fucking hot dog meme, isn't it?
We're all trying to find the guy who did
and
this.
Miriam Cates and her party.
Yeah.
Government minister, yeah, we need...
It's so disingenuous.
Radical
That's
new offer.
obvious.
Radical new offer, you're right.
It's also absolutely extraordinary that she says that some rogue advisor has written this because the Conservatives never say it's unfair that 80% of the wealth is held by the over 60s. It's like, Miriam,
what the hell?
Miriam, that's the base.
Shut up!
That has like a that's like a NatCon flavour to that. That's what that is. That's what that is.
Yeah.
Skip.
Cool. Happy with that? Come on then.
Right.
Ed and Ava's idea on how to fix Westminster.
Okay.
Megara and I will judge you.
So,
Harshly.
there's been a lot of MPs. Well, one MP in particular recently has been criticised for her persistent absenteeism in Parliament. Nadine Dorries hasn't made a speech in Parliament for a year. So, we think...
Is that true?
She's been busy.
Yeah? She hasn't spoken in Parliament for a year.
Even as a government minister?
She answered quick. She hasn't made a speech.
Right, got you. Cool.
This is a...
Sorry.
All of this has been verified.
Yeah, this is. We're about to radicalise Westminster. We're about to fix politics.
Nadine Dorries, is that the one that always looks drunk?
That's
the one.
Yes.
You can take the looks out.
Yes, it is.
My dad comes down with videos of her and he's like, she's steaming again. Look at her, she's always looks like she's had a few. And I'm like, yes, probably, I don't know.
She hasn't made Parliament for a year. So, we think, if you're an MP, any MP, but particularly a Conservative MP, you don't like being in Parliament, you should have to join Sinn Féin. Because they have a policy of not sitting in Parliament.
That's right.
And you try and win a Conservative base, you could try and win a Conservative safe seat
Mid-Bedfordshire.
as a Sinn Féin,
With Sinn
as a
Féin.
Sinn Féin candidate.
Sorry, so your idea to fix British politics
penalty
is the former political wing of the IRA. That's
You have
your
to
idea.
campaign as them.
Listen, pal. All right? This isn't ideological.
Can you
all right?
explain how this fixes Westminster?
They-
What we're saying
because
is you've got to
it'll be-
turn up to Parliament
the-
or you're in Sinn Féin.
The people,
Right.
the people of Mid Bedfordshire would finally get some parliamentary representation.
Thoughts?
I don't,
It's not working for me.
just get the paintball guns out.
There we go.
I think Sinn Féin might have different guns.
We might have to take that out.
Why? No, we don't. Well, sorry, they'll know
Someone out
people
the
who
back
have
has
some
like
guns.
ripped all the wires out.
Kill the broadcast! Kill it!
Sorry, I think they might know some people who have some guns.
Yeah, we came full circle there, didn't we, with the paintball guns? That's very
call back.
professional. Yeah, that's very professional presenting there, Megara. Megara Furie, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on the podcast. Very insightful, very funny. Thank you. We really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me
Thank
on.
you.
Ava, Ed, a pleasure as always.
Drop a comment if you think Nadine Dorries should be in Sinn Féin.
See you on the next one. Thank you.
Or maybe AA.